Hello, Mrs. Cohn. Thank you for joining us. And a very warm welcome to you and to your family from Germany. My name is Miriam Hollstein. I am a Berlin-based journalist, and on behalf of the Jewish Film Festival Berlin-Brandenburg, I'm happy to talk to you today about your film Chichinette, The Accidental Spy, which is the story of your life. And I have to say, it's one of the most amazing and inspiring stories I've ever heard. So, to give a very short overview, as a young Jewish woman from Metz in France, you became a spy really by accident because people realized that you grew up bilingually with French and with German. So you went to Germany under a false identity as a German nurse, and you risked your life to get some information about the enemy, right?
Right.
So I'm very excited to learn more about you and about this act of courage. And I have a lot of questions, and when you're ready, we can get started with the questions.
I would just like to add that I come from a very religious, Orthodox Jewish family from Metz, which is only 35 miles from the border of Germany. And I spoke German as a child because since 1870 to the end of World War I on November 1918, the Department of the Moselle, of which my hometown of Metz is the capital, and all of Alsace were annexed by the Prussian army of Kaiser Wilhelm I and General Bismarck, who invaded France, and they laid siege to Paris. They never entered Paris like the Germans did in 1940, but they laid siege and the Parisians were starving. So the French wanted them to go back to Prussia. And Kaiser Wilhelm I and Bismarck demanded that the Department of the Moselle and all of Alsace be given to Germany, to the Prussian government. And the French did it. So from 1870 to November 11, 1918, the Department of the Moselle and Metz included, and all of Alsace were annexed by the German, and it was forbidden to speak French in all this, in the entire region. So my parents spoke only Hochdeutsch, a very elegant Hochdeutsch, and that's the first language I learned. At the same time, my elder brothers and sisters were already in school learning French, because I was born a year and a half after end of World War I. And I spoke French with my siblings. We always spoke French. But with my parents, I spoke only German. So I was bilingual since my birth. And that explains why I could do that job in Germany. Okay, now you can go on.
Okay, thank you for explaining the historical background. My first question is, As a child, have you ever imagined that you would become a spy one day? Was it something like a childhood dream?
No, never, never. I had a lot of dreams, but not that one.
So it was really by accident. You never dreamt of doing something very exceptional.
No.
I did not understand.
Did you dream of doing something
Yeah,
exceptional?
I dreamt a lot of going to Berlin and kill Hitler, but I knew I would do it, so I never did it. But I dreamt that a lot during the war.
Mm.
But not
So
as a child.
not as a child, but later on.
I was
Okay.
not a child anymore. I was a teenager.
So as a spy, you risked your life, and in the film you say that once you crossed the border to Germany, you were really, really afraid. So how did you overcome this fear?
Oh, that's the time I was the most terribly afraid. I was afraid to the point of being paralyzed by fear, and it took me at least 2 hours to overcome that fear. But suddenly I remembered something which clicked in my brain, and I got up and walked. And that something was that before being sent to Germany, I was sent by Colonel Bouvet of the Commando of Africa, the regiment I was assigned to after I was trained. And Colonel Bouvet sent me 13 times into mission to cross the front in France, in Alsace, and 13 times I was not successful for many reasons. One of the reasons was that during the war everything is very fluid and things change. And when I arrived from A to B, I could not process because I didn't find what I was supposed to find. That's one of the reasons. There were other reasons. We had military guides, and the military guides explained to me exactly what I will find on the ground and how to proceed. But they are humans and they make mistakes. And twice the military guide made a huge mistake and I couldn't proceed. If you want, I can later tell you what the mistakes were. But the Captain Mollin du Jourdan, who was an excellent officer, was in charge of my missions. Colonel Bouvet put him in charge of my missions. And he was an excellent officer, like I said, but he could not accept that the missions that he prepared were not successful. So every time I came back unsuccessfully, he said that I had done something wrong. I had terrible troubles with him. I had a lot of discussion with him in front of Colonel Bouvet and all the superior officers of the commandos of Africa. And every time he said that I had done something wrong. And I said I did not do anything wrong, but it happened just that I was arrested by the French army twice. And and the Colonel Bouvet called the military guide, who said that he had put me on the wrong
Trail.
trail
Mm.
on the mountain. And then Captain Dumoulin was so horrified that he hated my guts from that moment and always thought that. So when I was lying near the road behind bushes, seeing the two German sentinel carmen go, they were heavily armed, and they came from the eastern edge of the
Field.
tree and walked to the center and stopped just where I was lying behind the bushes. And the other sentinel came from the west, met him, they talked 2-3 seconds, separated and walked to the end of the trail. And they did that constantly 24 hours a day. They were relieved after several hours, but they always did that to verify, because there was no barrier between the Swiss field where I was lying behind the bushes and the German road, which was just in front of it.
Because you crossed the border from Switzerland to Germany.
Yeah.
Explain why you got up.
Yeah, so I got up
Why?
because I remembered suddenly that Captain
Mollard.
Dujardin would say again, you see, I told you she had cold feet, she will never do it.
Okay.
And this time he would be right. So I got up and walked. That's why I walked.
So for over 60 years, you didn't talk about your past. What made you break the silence?
Okay, the first time I talked about it is because the Spielberg's Foundation of the Shoah had an ad in the LA Times that I read every day, still now. And in that ad, it asked that people who had fought against the Germans should come forward. That was in 1996. So I felt that was the right venue. And I called them and I testified. And that's the first time I ever talked about it. But my husband and my children still didn't know it.
I was surprised to hear this, that your entire family didn't know about it.
Oh,
Not even your husband. So how, I have to ask your husband or your son, so how did they react when they learned what happened in your past?
They learned it by reading my book. I never told them, not even now. But they heard me talk, given a lot of talks. So now they know the whole story. But
is it kind of liberating to talk about such a painful past very often, or can it also be a burden sometimes?
no, it was neither. It was just something normal to do at that time. I was ready to do it at that time. That's all.
Okay. So the title of the movie is Chichinette, which is the French term for a little pain in the neck. And that's the nickname.
Right.
Sorry?
That's not quite right. In reality, Chichinette means fussy girl. But
Okay.
But my trainers in the intelligence service, I was questioning everything they said. And one of them was so tired of hitting me, and I was too criticizing, telling them that what they told me was too complicated. They could simplify it. So they started calling me Chichinette. And that name stuck during the whole war. I was called that in the whole army, even in Vietnam, in the 60s, in the 50s when I was in Vietnam.
But your husband doesn't call you Chichinette, right?
No, they hate it as much as I do.
So in the film, you say that you try to turn into a real German in order to be a perfect spy. I was wondering, how did you do it? And was there a red line you did not want to cross while playing this role?
Oh, but once I crossed, I wanted to do the best job I could. I knew I was risking my life, so it was worth it to do the best job I could. And I tried very hard to become a German. But I knew I was watching myself from above my head. And whatever I did, I was telling myself if I did well or not well. But I felt that I needed to be as German as I could to do my job well. And I tried to do it, and I did it. That's all. I cannot explain to you how I did it. It just was normal to do it for me.
In the film, you said then that once you realized that you care too much about a German family, you decided to leave Germany. That was the moment when you decided to leave Germany, right?
Yeah, but it was not the only reason.
After the war.
Yeah, but that was not the only reason. There was reason in my own military government where I was working that it will come back.
Where the large lake is. It's a large lake.
Yeah, it's a Lake of Constance. But it's not Constance. It's it will come back.
It's Lindau. Is it on the German side?
Lindau.
Lindau. Okay. So how do?
Yeah, it was in Lindau. I was assigned to the military government in Lindau, but I was the chief of a department. No Bavarian of that area could travel without my authorization. I was a big boss. So, but that was my official work. My unofficial work was to check which candidate who asked me to travel could work for us, because intelligence never stops, even amongst the Allies, and they were going to travel to sections of English, American, or Russian. So I was checking who could work for us. And then I would not talk to them about it at all, but I would tell our officers, and one of them would come and meet them in another office, and I was not involved in that at all. I was just selecting them. That was all.
All right. How do you feel about Germany today and about the Germans?
I feel very strongly that I did not want to be told that Jews are responsible 2,000 years later for the death of Christ. So I feel very strongly that the young Germans, or the middle-aged Germans who didn't even live at that time or were small children, are not responsible for what their grandparents or fathers did. And I told them, that's what I told them, because they need reassuring, because they feel so guilty about what happened in Germany. Right now, there are other problems in Germany, and it may become different. But when I was there, all these people felt so guilty that I had to reassure them.
What is the most important lesson you want to teach young people, not only in Germany, but also in other countries, by telling the story of your life?
I tell them two things. I don't give them a lot of advice, but be engaged and do not accept any order that your conscience could not approve. These are the two important things I tell them.
This is a very important advice. So, but unfortunately, in Germany, as well as other European countries, like your home country, France, we see that the anti-Semitism is on the rise again. Are you sometimes afraid that history could repeat itself?
History can always repeat itself. That's why I felt my job was to talk to them about what I did, to give them an example that one person can change things.
But what can we do against it? What are you expecting from people to do against it?
I hope that they would take an example of what I did and do the right thing when it's needed.
One has to be very brave to do what you did. I don't know if everyone is so brave. So
You don't need to do exactly that, but to be involved in what's going on and not accept what is wrong.
you're right. So another question I was wondering is, your sister and your fiancé Jacques were killed by the Nazis. After all you've gone through, how did you manage to rebuild trust in life and in people again?
I wrote something about that, because that was a very difficult thing. Excuse me. Remembering them constantly, speaking to them, which I did a lot, and I still do. Never forgetting them, but in the same time keeping very busy living, taking care of patients who needed me, being a member of a very close family helped me very much too. I loved reading, theater, ballets, hiking in mountains, and made easily friends even during the occupation of France. That so many risked their lives to save ours was an enormous help in keeping depression at bay.
Thank you. That's a powerful message. While watching the film, I was always also wondering, there are a lot of famous World War II heroes, but they are all men. Do we tend to underestimate the role women played in the fight against fascism? What do you think?
You know, during the resistance, many important women, women became important as resistance, but it's not as known as it should be. But there are thousands of women did enormous amount of work during the resistance in France. I cannot talk about another country. I lived in France during the war and I saw it, but I was never accepted in the resistance because they looked at me. I was only 4'11", very thin, very blonde with blue eyes, and they felt that I had no substance whatsoever. They didn't trust me, so they never accepted me. My younger sisters, who were 4 and 5 years younger than I, were extremely active in the resistance.
So they were accepted?
Yeah, they were accepted, but not in the same area than I was. They were in the center of France in the mountains, and my oldest brother was the chief of the resistance in that area. And my second brother was working with him. So they were all extremely active in the resistance. But I was not with them. I was in Marseille and in Paris, and there I could not get accepted. They tapped me on the head and said, "Little girl, go back to your mother."
So you turned 100 years in April, which is really, really incredible. Where do you're still giving lectures about your life. You traveled to Europe just a few years ago with your husband. So where do you get this energy from?
I came back from my last trip, not in Europe, but in Maine and in New Jersey on March 6, 2019.
So last year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
2020, this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I gave my last talk on March 6th of this year.
So what's your secret? Where do you get the energy from?
I don't know, but I like to meet people. I like people. I am very people friendly. And it's important for me to have relations with people. I hate the quarantine time. I hate it, but I have no choice.
But you're giving interviews via Zoom, so at least something.
Yeah, I am giving many interviews.
So in the film, we can see that your husband, who is right by your side now, is always by your side.
Yes.
You used for a very long time, you used to be his assistant, and now he's your assistant. I was wondering how difficult or how easy was it for him to accept this change of roles?
Why don't you ask him?
So it's share and share alike. That's the expression. For many years she worked with me and for me, and now the roles are reversed. It's easy, no problem. And we travel to places in the world where I never would have traveled if not for her story. Like Vietnam, Cambodia.
So what's the secret of your love?
What?
What's the secret of your love?
I have no secret. It just
No secret. As a spy, you have a lot of secrets.
no. I had secrets then, but I have none now.
So my last question is, what is the achievement you're most proud of in your life?
Oh, that's a very important question. It's to have saved my family, because I am the one who organized our departure from Poitiers after going to see my sister Stephanie in the camp where she was kept. And I reminded her, because we wanted her to escape, and she refused. So I went to see her, and I reminded her that her mother needed her as much as the children in the camp. She was a medical student, and she had organized to give medical care to the children in the camp when nobody had done that before. And she looked at me and she said, "Don't you realize that if I escape, you're all going to be arrested?" I had never thought about that. So I went home, and on my way back, I had a very long walk. I decided that we are all going to cross into non-occupied France so she can escape. We were able to do it. And it's the most beautiful human story of my whole life, how we were helped to do it, from Poitiers to non-occupied France, because Poitiers was occupied.
Mm. Mm.
And, but Stephanie was never able to escape, because at the last minute, when she was ready to go to the hospital for medical care that she needed, and I had organized that as soon as she arrives in the hospital, she's taken by all her classmates hidden and brought back into non-occupied France to meet us there. The next morning we were leaving, and now the same morning where she wanted to go to the hospital, we were leaving. And at the last minute, Adjutant Heap, I don't know if you read about him. He called himself the king of the Jews in Poitiers and in the region. He was from the Zippo, which was created by Hitler in March 1942. The Zippo, S-I-P-O. They're just initials of a big name about security. Do you know the Germans like big words? So they make one word.
He said your sister couldn't.
Yeah, so the last minute he told, why are these people standing there? And they told him they go to the hospital. And he said, nobody goes to the hospital. And that was the end of my sister.
Okay.
He killed her.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Cohn, for being here with us today, for sharing your story, for being so patient. And I wish you all the best to you and your family.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really love your eyes. They're sparkling. Mine were
Thank you.
but I don't think they sparkle anymore.
They do. They do. One can see this in the movie. And I hope a lot of German viewers will see the movie.
Okay.
So
translated into German.
Well,
Your book was.
yeah, my book was translated into German in Frankfurt, and I have several copies here.
So people can either see the movie or read your book,
I have
right?
to tell you something too. Your president, Mr. Steinmeier, had
Yes.
invited my husband and I for tea in the castle in Berlin. We were the only guest.
What a big honor.
For my 100th birthday, he wrote me a letter. My father couldn't have written a better letter than that.
Mm.
It was amazing.
Mm. All right. So thank you very much, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you.
Auf
And you
Wiedersehen.
too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Au revoir.